Watch that with us. Newsmax correspondents coming under fire in the east of Ukraine reporting finding themselves in the middle of a battlefield. We've reported they've made their way back to relative safety there. Joining us now is senior correspondent. You just saw him there, John Huddy, live in Ukraine. John, frightening video to watch there. Take us back to that moment and tell us about that journey if you could.
Yeah, absolutely. So this was in a village, basically a small town outside of Zaporizhia, which is where I am now in the center of Zaporizhia. But we made the journey to this town, and we were actually there a couple days ago meeting with evacuees and 2 senior citizens that we helped escort out of that town. But it's basically on the front line. So today we went there with the intention of going to a medical unit, a building that was being used to treat, people there, villagers who were injured, and also soldiers when there was incoming cannon fire. And then we heard what as we found out later, was basically Russian forces trying to put pressure on the Ukrainian lines there. And we were really in the thick of it. The cannon fire was targeting something right behind the building that hit. There were several hits there. That's what you were hearing. And then I also heard the small arms fire, machine gun fire, as Russian units were trying to push in and the Ukrainian lines were pushing back. And this was really representative of what we're seeing in the south of Zaporizhia, where Russian lines are really trying to put pressure and push into these Ukrainian lines that are holding down and repelling these attacks in the south. And also in the eastern part of the country, in Kramatorsk, which is under intense bombardment, also Russian forces are launching an even more intensive campaign, an offensive there, and with the intention of trying to take Donetsk and Luhansk in the Donbass region. We also understand when we were in Kharkiv about a week and a half ago, we saw and heard the intense artillery fire, basically to trading the volley of cannon fire and artillery fire in Kharkiv. Well, Ukrainian forces did not only repelled those Russian attacks and attempted advances, but also launched a counterattack in Kharkiv, retaking several key villages and towns on the outskirts of Kharkiv. But really the concern at this point is going into the weekend that Russian forces are going to really ratchet up and enhance and even intensify their campaign in the south and in the east. In fact, Zaporizhia is going to be going into a lockdown for 48 hours starting Sunday, with the assumption and presumption that really the fighting is going to be intensive going into the weekend, and coming out with Vladimir Putin, Russian President Putin, trying to declare some sort of victory in Mariupol come Monday, which is Victory Day, May 9th in Russia. So, and speaking of Mariupol, I should mention really quick, the fight remains very intense, perhaps one of the most intense fights of this war for the Azovstal steel plant, where Ukrainian forces are hunkered down, holding the line. Russian forces, we understand, started going in there to try to take out those remaining forces. This, as the UN says, several more buses have gone there to take evacuees out. At this point, 500 people from Azovstal and Mariupol have been evacuated from that region, but many more remain there. Back to you.
Wow. All right. John Huddy, stay safe. Thanks so much for your report. We do appreciate that. We'll check in with you in just a bit. Day 72 of this war. Meantime, an explosive New York Times report alleging this: U.S. intelligence helped Ukraine strike Russian flagship, saying in part the United States provided intelligence that helped Ukrainian forces locate and strike the flagship of Russia's Black Sea Fleet last month. Another sign that the administration is easing its self-imposed limitations on how far it will go in helping Ukraine fight Russia. The American intelligence was crucial to Ukraine's sinking of the ship. Again, that from the New York Times. Joining us to discuss is board member at the American Conservative Union and former Trump Deputy National Security Advisor, KT McFarland. KT, thank you so much for coming on to discuss this. I couldn't think of anyone better to do so. Why are U.S. intelligence officials reportedly bypassing Congress, tipping off Ukrainians, according to that report? And would Russia see that as an act of war? Is there danger to doing something like that?
So there are a couple of issues here, Sean, and let's unpack them. Number one, the United States has, with congressional support and with White House support, and really bipartisan support, said we're going to give Ukraine what Ukraine needs to fight the fight for it by itself, for itself. We've not gone to the point of giving them airplanes, big aircraft, for example, but we've given them a lot of things. And one of the things the United States is particularly good at is sharing intelligence. Number two, though, we should not be talking about it. Why? Because why do we have to brag about something that we're doing? How about just doing it and having it be effective and let the Ukrainians take the credit for it? By bragging about it, What we're doing is giving Vladimir Putin a very potent weapon to take to his own people. Part of his war is spinning it to his population. They're not seeing what you're showing on Newsmax. They don't know what the rest of the world knows. They think they're winning this war. They think it's a noble cause. They think they're fighting Ukrainian Nazis just like their grandparents fought the German Nazis in World War II. But Vladimir Putin has been able to portray this as everybody's against Russia. Everybody's against Russia and their brothers in Ukraine. It's NATO. It's America. This is just another way of America attacking Russia. And so by giving him all of this sort of political ammunition, Vladimir Putin is quoting the New York Times. He's quoting the American Defense Secretary saying, see, I told you all along, this was all about America coming after Russia. And what it does is it perpetuates the support the Russian people are giving Putin. He's popular over this war, believe it or not.
Well, Pentagon spokesperson John Kirby, Admiral Kirby, was asked about this, and there were some contradicting statements made for the report by the New York Times. Listen to this.
The United States provides battlefield intelligence to help Ukrainians defend their country. We've talked about that quite a bit. We do not provide intelligence on the location of senior military leaders on the battlefield or participate in the targeting decisions of the Ukrainian military. The Ukrainians have, quite frankly, a lot more information than we do.
Your thoughts on that and how that is handled? Obviously, he's got to tiptoe around certain subjects,
right?
And, right? He's speaking for the Pentagon at this point. But your thoughts on that and how that was handled versus, again, the Times report?
You know, somebody's talking to the New York Times. I mean, the New York Times has been known to make things up in the past. Certainly they have about me and about other people. But at the same time, somebody inside the Pentagon or the intelligence community is talking to the New York Times, and they shouldn't be doing that because the kind of cooperation we're giving, and John Kirby was very careful to walk the line, but we're not giving them targets to attack. We're just sharing battlefield intelligence. So on one hand, it sounds like, well, we're sharing with the Ukrainians where the Russian tanks are. But that's a very fine line between telling them where the senior military officials are. The reason that the Russian generals in Ukraine are so vulnerable is because unlike the American military or a lot of Western militaries, the Russian military they make all the decisions in the Kremlin. They make all the decisions at the top. They don't delegate any of the decisions to the people in the battlefield, to the captains, to the colonels. They're all making the decision at the general level. So when there's something that's going wrong in Ukraine, and there's a lot that's going wrong, the generals are all coming into Ukraine and thereby putting themselves in the line of fire. And that's why you're seeing such high fatalities of their general officers. Normally in any war, a lot of
information governance board put in place by DHS. This has been a back and forth on Capitol Hill with senators, and many Republican lawmakers disagree with this disinformation board and who decides what is disinformation and what is not. Do you have thoughts on this, on the government getting involved in what is true and what is not? Final thoughts.
This is like George Orwell's Ministry of Truth, where the government is deciding what you can think, what you can talk about, what you can say to your fellow citizens. It is dangerous. It gets at the heart of democracy. And unless the Republicans on Capitol Hill and the American voters in 2022 and 24 make a change, this is going to be a real problem going forward. You do not suppress free speech. We have never had this kind of imposition of government, big government control over the free speech of American citizens ever in our history.
We'll leave it right there. KT McFarland, thank you so much. I hope you enjoy your weekend. It's always great to see you, KT. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Sean.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.